What's up, y'all? I'm Kendama, and I'm here with a Kendama video. This is what you guys have been waiting for, I guess, for a while. But today I'm doing my top 10 Kendamas of 2023. As always, these things are subjective. They are subjective. No matter how objective I say, or no matter how many times I say objective, it is subjective. But I will say this, a lot of these have been sent to me so I can do videos. Some of these I have bought, but regardless, I'm not gonna let those feelings get in the way of how I truly feel about the Kendama. Without further ado, let's get into our honorable mention spot. So our honorable mention spot is gonna go to the analog Kendama gnome. The gnome was like one of those surprising shapes that I didn't think I was really gonna like. And then as soon as I picked it up at LVKO last year, I was like, yo, this is kind of interesting. And then at CKC, Keelan, who won amateur, was like, I don't really like this. Here you go. I wanted a 2B, so here you go, have it. And I'm like, okay. And I've been playing with it and I really like it. It still retains all its good lunar balance. It has one of the best juggle feelings that I've ever had. It has some of the best bird stalls ever. I don't know if you guys follow Dave Sher. I'm sorry if I'm saying it wrong and you're watching this video. Whenever he does a bird trick, or when he was on analog and just doing a bunch of bird stall tricks, he was ripping this, and that's because it's that good at it. I did wings on this like I have never done wings before, which is crazy. It also keeps its really good lunar balance, and it's very, very stable on its axis when you're flipping. The combination of that, and it kind of is good at slings. Like, it's not the best sling Kendama, but it does slingers well. All those combinations just made it really fun, and it's just a sturdy shape. Like, I feel like I could throw this like across a parking lot and it would still play good. It also keeps a bunch of traditional stuff. There's nothing crazy. The craziest thing is the smallest whirlpool you've ever seen in your life, but there's no swoop, there's no stepped cups, there's none of that stuff. It's just a good Kendama while staying pretty traditional. Now, don't get me wrong, it's a big shape. Like, it has bigger cups, all that kind of stuff, but it feels like I'm playing a Kendama from, back in the day. I wish the shape got more love. It does deserve a lot more love, but it didn't quite make it on the list just because it is not my go-to. But when I do play it, I'm like, yo, what the heck? So honorable mention goes to this thing. The number 10 spot was really hard because there were a couple different ones that could be in this spot, but I had to pick the one that I had the most fun with, and that is the AE2. So aside from me just being, really cool with Adrian and Adrian being really cool with me, his Kendama is one of my favorite Kendamas just ever. It's super fun to play with. It does a lot of different things with all the different grooves, so you can do string tricks and stuff. It has 2 big cups, which is great. I know a bunch of people have a problem with 2 big cups. I really don't care. Like, at this point, if they're a millimeter in difference, does it really matter? But everyone has their own opinion about that. But having a small cup is good too. I'm not saying either one is better or worse than the other. I'm just saying, like, it really doesn't matter. It also has some pretty good lunar balance. I wouldn't say insane, but it has some pretty good lunar balance with the double hole right there. Like, there are freaking 2 holes in there. It has all of the nicest stall points ever. This is definitely one of the best stall Kens I have ever played ever in my life. And it's just like an overall simplistic design. Like, just the 70-30 with the string and then the string burns on the cups. Like, it's just a good design, and it's a fun Kendama to play. It's a really good all-arounder and just a fun one to play in general. I personally probably would not use it in competition. As a fun all-rounder to film with and just sesh, it's up there, and it is super fun to play, and that's why it's at 10. On number 9 on my list, I got the Chrome Sleigh Dog 3 right here. Again, another just fun shape, and I feel like I could just let a little bit more loose on this than the AE2. It's super good at flipping and tapping. Oh my God, top tier when it comes to all of those. The lunars are pretty cool. Small cup lunars are not so much fun on this one, just because the small cup is super fun. If you guys want to check out my unboxing on that, I compare it to an original Sleigh Dog and some of the newer Chrome stuff. And this thing, and it's just, I think it is a smaller cup from back then, which, it's not a bad thing. It's just not good for small cup lunar. How long this thing is, normally I'm not like the biggest fan of super long shapes, but because of how much it just Ken flips and feels good when you're juggling in the hand, I have forgiven. It's also a really fun stall Kendama, just like flow and stuff. Like, the guy who plays third at Catch and Flow, I think he used this and he was destroying with that thing just because you can flow into everything super well. And that is a for sure thing. You can do that. The lunar balance isn't the best lunar balance on the list. The Ken flip juggles aren't the best on the list, but it is just super solid and feels great when you play it. Especially with the tracking, especially with tom design, especially with how the ash bonds to the new anti-skid rubber. It was just, there was no way it wasn't gonna be on the list just because, oh my goodness, just, if you don't have one of these, just grab one of these, because this is it's just a dope one that Chrome dropped. It feels great, it feels good. So number 8 on this list is the Soul 1-Up. So that's really surprising because that was number 10 last year, but I got to play this more in a very dark time in my life, and it was just like a really reliable Kendama. And at the time in my life, I needed something very reliable to just lean on, and this was there. in both ways. There was a point in time last year where just shapes were becoming like too much and we were straying too far away from what I grew up with playing kendama, and this just brings me back completely. It's a smaller shape, but it still has all of those bigger cups and stuff, so it's not too small, it's not too big. It flips more. It flips more because it is a, you know, just not as tall shape. So that's always fun doing late Kens and stuff. If I want to do a triple, I do triples on these because they come back faster. One gripe is that a couple of these that I have don't sling because the cups are just too heavy on them, but that's about the only gripe. And the only other thing is that there are more Kendamas now that do all of the things this thing does, but easier. Not like, oh my gosh, this is trash, easier, but just like, but the game is so ahead. Like, again, like I said, people adding and designing Kendamas to be different and make it easier, and it does make it easier. But this brings me back, and it plays really good. Alex Mitchell wins everything with this, or maybe he used the 2-up recently. But before that, he was using this. Kelvin Wong wins stuff with this. KD wins stuff with this. There's a reason why. This shape is good. Number 7 on this list. Now, this one's just a little like it hurts my soul. Not because it doesn't deserve it, but because there's not a lot of them out there. This is the Nexus shape from R&D Kendamas, and it was one of the best first shapes I have ever seen from a starting kendama company. It is very, very long. I don't know if it fits in the KWC box, but regardless of that, it literally does everything. Again, like, you know how I said the 1-up was like, it does everything good? This is just one of those kendamas that also does everything good, but it's just easier to do all those things. It has super rounded bird stalls so that like when you do your birds, they just lock in without a step, which is always great. The cups aren't too wide or anything. They're pretty narrow. So like, because they're squished in like that, when you're doing your slings, you go forever on this thing. And on top of all that, it has crazy lunar bounce. And they did all that lunar bounce without having a big hole. That is what the bounce hole is, and it's not large at all. Long Ken, so it's good at juggles and flips and all that stuff. And it just felt super good and refined in the hands. And honestly, I was just amazed by Peyton and what he did with this shape. It's just such a good shape. There's just not a lot of them out there, unfortunately. And on top of the shape, like the paint on this thing is crazy. Peyton's clear in paint is absolutely ridiculous. Why it falls on 7 on this list is just because it is pretty big. Not saying that's a bad thing, but over preference, like there are things on this list that you will see later on that aren't as long or big that do all of the things that this thing can do in a different way, obviously. That's why we got the Nexus at number 7. At the number 6 spot, we have the Lock Studios Deadbolts. This is a super fun part 2 to the locked shape, in my opinion. This thing slaps for lunars. It is a lunar monster and arguably is the best lunar kendama of this year. It has such good in-hand feeling for like late Kens and juggles just because of the space right here. The slip ring space has always been good, carried from the locked shape. I have a bamboo one, so it doesn't tap as good as the maple ones, but it also taps very well. The only thing about this shape is that like its center of gravity when like you're flipping it and stuff almost feels like a hammer is coming towards you. Like it's just a little too chunky, at least from my opinion, at least from my taste. So it doesn't make it a bad shape. It was just that like when it was coming towards you, like it was violent, it was crazy. Now for other people, that might be like perfect for them, and that's why you see people like Zaki and Miguel and all those guys destroy. Like Locked has one of the craziest teams and they land some of the craziest tricks, but for me it was just a little bit too chunky, but it was just so fun and easy to do. Like if you want to be good at lunars fast, you grab this. You don't get anything else, and if you just like, if that's the only trick you want to do in your life, you get this. You get it. Get it. Get it. Number 5 on my list is going to be the Serial Ascent 2. Now, this one had kind of like a weird thing with me. At first when I got it, I was like, wow, this thing is interesting. And not really in a bad way, but it was just so much different from the Hybrid 2 that I was like, and the Ascent 1 was a little bit closer to the Hybrid 2, so that's why like I like that one a lot. But I just had to kind of play this one like for a long time and ended up growing on me. When I first got it, I thought this kendama was like a little bit disproportionate. Like this sword was so thin and everything else was just so big. And then after just playing it, you kind of get used to it. The lunar bounce on this thing is insane, especially with like, that is the biggest balance hole ever in my life. The cups are as big as you possibly can be. I think their goal with this shape was to fit it in the KWC box and max out the KWC box, which if that's your goal, that's great. You know, the 1-step cup thing, it was cool. It didn't really help with my slings as much as I wanted to. Like I can sling this thing, but I don't think it's because of the steps cup. But it is a fun juggle kendama because it is so chunky where it's chunky. It flips kind of light and you do like a trip Ken up and it's like, oh, it just slapped in my hand. Like that's amazing. And the reason why it's above the locked is just because it is just that much slimmer, which makes that big enough of a difference for me to just have it just a little bit above it. I think I had an anti-skid matte beach tama on this, and as soon as I swapped it out, I started liking this thing more. I don't know. I think I'm finding out that like beach anti-skid matte is not a good combination. I don't know if that's just me, but I slapped on this new Dama paint, which again, a video coming on that soon. It just played super well. I started tapping it and it started feeling more right before it started feeling like kind of hollow and stuff. Tapped it differently and it ends up working. Again, why it's at 5. There are things with better form factors that I think can do all the things that this do, but again, a better form factor and it just feels easier in my opinion. That's why we have the Ascent 2 at number 5. At number 4, we got the NLK Grunt. Backstory behind this, Artemis Kendama just disappears out of nowhere because owner go crazy. The Jacob picks up the shape and puts his own flair on it, and then we get this beautiful masterpiece right here. This thing actually form factor wise is almost like the Ascent 2, but it takes that step back and kind of just like dials everything in to where the in-hand feeling isn't like ridiculous or anything. It's still big, don't get me wrong, but it's not ridiculous. The cups on this thing are huge, don't get me wrong. The sword on this thing is thin, but the bottom cup just feels proportionate and adds to this whole thing shtick, which is Lunar Big Go Hard. Now, earlier I said the Deadbolt was the easiest Lunar Kendama ever, and this is second. But this one slings really good. Not only that, but because all the weight's in the cups, the way this thing turns when you're doing a juggle and Ken flip and all that stuff, it just feels really good. They have a lot of players who like those tricks. So like Isaac or Luke, they are just discussing at those tricks and they use this a lot of the time. There's not a lot I would actually change about this. Like I think this is one of those shapes. And as we get into like the, next couple ones, like these are the shapes that like mean very slight things, maybe done to them, but not a lot because they have their own identity and they're solid already. But yeah, it's very great. The reason why this is at 4 is just because the ratio between the sword and the cups it's not perfect. Nothing's perfect. It's just not where I would like it. I actually prefer something like a Sapper more, but this does play better than a Sapper in my opinion. So that's why we have the NLK Grunt at number 4. Here we get to the top 3, and the top 3 like is kind of crazy. The top 3 this year is just like made me want to punch someone in the face. The top 3 this year, I almost committed crimes. The top 3 this year almost made me ruin my friendships. They all are kind of swappable, but this, to my best of my ability without being biased, is like, this is the top 3. So at number 3, we have the Wyatt Bray Pro model. When Quad asked me to do a video on this and drop it the day of CKC, I was like, yeah, sure. And I do the video and I'm like, oh, like this is real deal business. And it's real deal business when you know that like you get this a couple days before the comp in unreleased shape, and then you're questioning whether or not you're gonna use this at the comp or not. And mind you, I unboxed this 2 days before CKC and I was like, oh crap, this might be my comp dom. I didn't end up doing it because I was just too quick of a switch up and I'd been playing with something else, but that's how good this thing is. This is a combination of like an Oni and a Kami, but then like, stuff that Wyatt likes. So the one-step cup is a cool thing, and I actually do think on this model, because of how close the cups are, because they're a little bit squished, the step actually does help with slings just a little bit more than say like the Ascent 2. The stall without the step is really good because it's just rounded perfectly. It's really solid. And I'm really in love with just this wide section right here that's still proportionate. It's wide, gives you good taps, lighthouses, all that kind of stuff, but it's not like freaking huge. And oh my gosh, how thick the sword is, and the taper on it is one of the most perfect ratios to cup, to sword, to all that ratio in my life. It's really, really good. It is a slinging machine, which is great, and it still has really good lunar bounce. The only gripes with this thing are literally that, it's more of the Tama's thing, is that like the Tama just has too deep/wide of a hole, so like when I'm going down to do like a J-stick, it'll fall out like a lot, which kind of sucks. And then also the spike on mine isn't pushed down all the way. I've tried to like push it down, but it's pretty short. But with that, I think it'd be even better with lunars if I pushed it down. Not to mention, on top of all that, I suck at taps, and this thing is really good at taps and made me good at taps. So grateful for this shape for that reason. Good all-arounder that is proportionate and feels good in the hands, in my opinion. And that's why I have the Bray 1 at number 3. Now, I know I said top 3 was hard, but 1 and 2 were really, really hard. The number 2 spot is gonna go to the Analog Kendamas 2B. Now, this technically came out, I think, in like late 2022, but I really got to play it in 2023, and I competed with this thing so freaking much. I competed with this thing at SLC, and then I competed with this thing at CKC, and this won me, well, not specifically this Ken, this is the other Ken got ran through. This shape I won SLC with, and I got top 8 in freestyle at CKC with this one. So a lot of different things going for this Kendama personally with my Kendama history. There was something about just the height of it, plus the cup ratio. Nothing was too big. Nothing felt crazy or anything like that. It felt like it was coming from the land of where this whole 1-up comes from, where it doesn't feel like a different, like alien-like kendama that's doing too much. It was doing all of these things and it just felt so refined. Even to the stepped cup, it doesn't do too much of a step. Literally, there is a lip right there for the stepped cup, and it feels so good for your stalls. Again, another lip right there for the handle stall, and it feels really good. I landed that handle stall trick in the SLC trick list so well because of it. It rings well too. I don't do rings all the time, but it rings super well. And to top it all off, it gunslingers and lunars like a freaking monster. If the grunt and the deadbolt are like 1A, 1B, this is 2A, 2B. That's a funny joke. That's how good it is at lunars. And then not to mention the gunslingers, I'm biased to gunslingers, I love gunslingers, and it still does all of those things, which makes me really happy. Because of just how this shape is, it flips so freaking fast. Like you hook for whatever you want, 4 lunar flip, and it comes back and it feels great because it's not too long, it's not any of that. The form factor of this shape is literally ridiculous. And I'm so mad that there's not like that many out there / not a lot of people know about this shape, I feel like. Dude, you need to give this shape a chance. I think Kendama Depot might have some. Maybe Analog has some Ken onlys on their website, but you need the 2B. Like you need one. And that's why it's number 2 on my list. So I've been hinting at number 1 for a while, and the company who makes this shape has been talking to me about it, and I've been kind of teasing them, but they know who they are. At number 1, I got a yellow. At number 1, I got the frickin' Question Kendama. The answer shape from Question Kendamas. This shook my list up because the 2B was about to be number 1 for sure, and then Parker sent me this. I've never felt like God came from the sky so much as to when I unboxed this thing right here. This is top tier lunar mounts. And I don't want to say it's better than like a locked or any of the ones I just said, but like it just feels so good when you lunar it. Like it stays just as well as those, and it's not going to slap as hard because it's not as heavy as any of those, but it just feels solid. And not only that, but this Serato is so thin, and not thin, but like it is so good and well thought out that like he added more weight in the cup rims to counteract how thin the Serato was. So now I have my slings plus my lunars. And not to mention that, but the form factor, this thing is like not really tall or anything like that. So when you flip, you can do as many flips as you want. Also, it has one of the best rings ever. Look how pretty that ring is. It is such a good ring. It is the best ring. And also the handle saw, one of the most solid handle stalls. Shout out to the homie Viv for landing her first handle saw on one of the answer shapes. That's when I knew. I was like, yo, this is changing it up. Because she had been going for that trick for forever. And I saw her land it on an answer shape and I was like, yeah, this is the real stuff right here. The answer shape is the real stuff. My one gripe, like this shape is pretty much perfect. My one gripe is that the holes in this thing are too big, so it'll kind of do something like the Bray where it will fall out when I am going for like a J-stick or something. If that's the only problem with the Kendama, that's good. And Parker's also like resolved that with the newer mods. He has made the hole smaller, so that's not going to be happening. I can't say anything other than this is like the best all-around shape I've ever played in my Kendama career, and I'm almost 11 years deep into this thing. And it's one of those shapes where I'm like, yeah, do not touch this. If you touch this, I will be very upset. Thankfully, Parker is not going to be changing the shape. I've talked to him and I convinced him, and I think other people have convinced him that this is one of the greatest shapes ever. I don't know if he'll do Ken onlys in the future. I don't know if he'll do what drops he's going to be doing. I know he has a lot of drops planned. I don't know when they're coming out. But all I have to say is that this is the best Kendama of 2023, and you need one right now. There it is. There's my top 10 Kendamas of 2023. It was really hard. There were so many good Kendama advancements in 2023 that make me really happy because that means Kendama's being pushed. That means Kendama players and Kendama owners and companies and stuff are really thinking hard about what they're doing about their Kendama shapes and stuff. This is to say that like, that's number 1 right there. And like, for real, that is number 1 to my preference. And I think unbiasedly, that is like the best shape. I think there's gonna come a time where a lot of Kendama companies are gonna end up looking like that shape or derive from that shape. As you go on, you're gonna realize like, this works, this works, this works, this works, this doesn't work anymore, we're removing that. A lot of Kendama shapes will end up looking the same. And playing the same, I don't know, maybe they'll do something a little bit different from each other, but the features are features. And you know, people are doing really big things in terms of changing those features, like Jacob from MNLK just released the swooped cup or whatever he's gonna call it. That's a game changer right there. That was the biggest thing ever this year. so far, and it's only freaking February. Kendama's great, shapes are great, companies are great, people are great, y'all are great, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please hit the like button, subscribe button, hit post notifications so you can be one of the first to watch these videos when they come out, and obviously sharing the video goes a long way for the channel. This is Elijah from Elko Kendama, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace!